Here we go. It is How to CPCU. How are you, Heather?
I am doing great, Matt. How are you?
I am very good. It is the usual time this week. It is Tuesday. It's 5:30. We're rolling at the regular time. For anyone, if you are new to this program, or even if you are a regular, this is the program that, let's see, if you're on the East Coast, you end your workday with. If you're on the West Coast, we get you through to the end of the workday. If you're in Europe, you're probably having insomnia right now, and hopefully we help you. We don't want to put you to sleep, but hopefully we get you some information while you're sitting wide awake over there in Europe and the other reaches of Asia. But this is How to CPCU. We are put on by volunteers of the CPCU Society, and we are just here to communicate the value and all of the tools and the resources that are available to CPCUs and would-be CPCUs that are out there that they can get from the society. So we were talking really quick, Heather. Pretty incredible. We've gone from freezing Arctic type conditions to, I believe you were in the 70s yesterday or today. Is that right?
Yeah. Perspective is an amazing thing, let's just say, because it was negative 13 where I'm at last week, and it was 74 yesterday.
Wow.
So
you know what that reminds me of? Have you ever watched the Riddick movies?
Yeah.
And so like in the sequel, Chronicles of Riddick, right?
Uh-huh.
They're on Crematoria, the planet, and like during the day it's like 4,000 degrees, and then at night it's like negative 2,000. It sounds like that's kind of where you're living right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you know what? I would imagine 70 is a very welcome difference to what you've had as of late.
Saw people driving around in convertibles with the top down.
Yeah, I would be too. I can't blame them.
Yeah.
A quick reminder before we get rolling with our guest. As usual, please like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, retweet. Get this out there to anyone that could use this information, and also find us entertaining. I think we try and do a pretty decent job of entertaining while we're bringing you some good stuff. So this week we are very lucky. We have a special guest with us, and our guest this week is John Black. John works over at Applied Underwriters, and this week we are going to be talking about just kind of career progression within the insurance industry. So how's it going, John?
Good. How about you two?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Or if I did, my wife would tell me to shut up. So
I know how that goes.
Yeah. So really quickly, for anyone who doesn't know you, who might tune in, who are you? I already said you work at Applied Underwriters, but kind of what do you do in the industry? How did you get here?
Actually, technically, Applied Specialty Underwriters. So we're the surplus lines group within Applied. So 39 years in the property and casualty insurance space. I'm an old guy. Cut my teeth way back in the day. Some may remember USF&G. Worked my way up through the underwriting ranks, underwriter, team leader, regional underwriting manager, and then drafted into the home office for product management, product development, home office underwriting. Had an interest in finance and IT, and wound up in legal departments. And more recently, Maxim, which is now part of Hartford, Cap Specialty, QBE, started up a surplus lines insurer called CM Vantage Specialty, just prior to joining Applied. So, kind of gives you a bit of the background. When I was in legal, I'm not an attorney, but I was considered someone you would talk to. I used to say, you talk to me before you talk to the general counsel, and we all lawyer up, and we spend a lot of money on attorneys. So we would try to find ways to solve problems is what we try to do.
You're like in Office Space. You have people skills. You know how to talk to people. Like that's. We try and stop the train wreck from happening before it happens.
Yeah, I think that's, maybe it's more that seeing the train wreck coming than the people skills. Like, oh my God, we can avoid this. Come on, let's compromise.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, I'm sure, and coming on with us. So we're talking about career progression, and one of our first conversations or parts of our conversation when we were kind of gearing up for this really started with, all right, some people call it career success and some people call it career like progress or progression. You have a pretty definitive take on that, or at least you have a preferred parlance that you choose to use in that respect. Just kind of dig into that and let everyone know where you kind of stand on that issue.
Sure. I would hate to even call it a stance. It's more of a philosophy. Just
Or preference. Yeah.
yeah, preference. Success to me can be defined so many different ways. It can be defined financially. It can be defined just by having a family or loved ones and being comfortable and enjoying life. And so, I really didn't want to talk about success because I think it's just too personal a concept. And I think originally we talked maybe, around leadership, but there are people that are far smarter than me or whose egos are far larger than mine, I hope, that can talk a great deal more about things like leadership. But, I think I can hopefully add a little value by talking about progression and, just the things that folks might want to do in order to help them enjoy their career more and kind of achieve their view of success.
Awesome. We got our first comment. Jim Albrecht says, USF&G, I worked with Steve Lilienthal. Good guy.
Tell him he still owes me $10 from the golf course. But
yeah.
I was there during the Norm Blake days, and Norm was quite a character. He was kind of like a chainsaw Al Dunlap type. And they were constantly in and out of initiatives, and if it didn't work, like within 6 months, everything got blown up and the deck chairs got resorted out. And as I think a lot of people on the call will understand, many things in insurance do not sort themselves out within a 6-month period. So you can imagine 5 years there was like 50 years anyplace else.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Jim Albrecht knows what I'm talking about, as does Steve Lilienthal. Steve followed Norm. He was there during the Norm days and then followed him.
Awesome. Well, and you have kind of a unique perspective on that. That kind of like either juxtaposition or that terminology, right, Heather? Like in terms of what constitutes success for someone is relative, right? But progression might not be absolute, but at least maybe it's a little bit closer that we could all kind of talk about progress in the insurance industry versus someone who's just like, oh, well, I promise you success, or how do you find success? And then they project their success onto that other person, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think, the whole concept of success has shifted like a lot of things in our industry, mainly because there's just so many different lateral style things that you can do within your career that can continue to help you to progress your knowledge base, or progress as far as your business acumen in another area of an organization. And I think the concept of success in the past has always been ladder climbing, like where am I going, and how am I going to get to this role I need. And now that organizations are becoming flatter and their structures and their design is a lot less hierarchical, there's a lot of opportunity where progression can happen, but it happens in a different way. It just happens in a way that seems foreign, because in the past it's always been, let me see, how do I get to this position in the organization, versus how do I expand my knowledge base, how do I grow in what I grow in my capabilities and what I'm doing. And that's often something where you're stepping to the side versus stepping up in an organization.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I think some of the best leaders in organizations are the ones that create. You don't have to run a company anymore. There's opportunity to run divisions and run businesses and be entrepreneurial. And I think the best leaders in our industry recognize that and encourage that. And those are the companies that, are the most viable and have that long-term competitive advantage. They have a culture of innovation. They have a culture of entrepreneurship. And, they make going to work and creating a business fun. And, dare I say it, because I think a lot of times in our industry, we've forgotten that, you have to make time and have a little bit of fun along with, the business. I mean, ultimately, we have to have a margin where there's no mission, but we can also have a little fun along the way.
Oh, yeah. No, most definitely. I think many of us have gone to work in businesses and places of work that feel like a mausoleum almost, right? Or I think maybe the other end of that is not necessarily just kind of that cold kind of atmosphere, but also more of the atmosphere that is completely production oriented, where it's like you're going to work in a factory and not a place that, has kind of a more human element to it, like a lot of us really prefer to get out of our roles within the insurance industry. So those are all really good points. Mike Kay, someone who has a wealth of career experience, also brings up a good point. His point is personal success is perceived differently as you progress through your career. So that's also a thought that it changes over time, right? It's organic. So what you see as a success in one role might not necessarily be the same, meter stick that you're measuring success in another role or once you find yourself in another position somewhere else. So that's always like a really good point. What drove you, John? Like as you were progressing through your career, what was really something, if you had to say one or two things that were really kind of motivating factors, what kind of drove you to progress and not just kind of stagnate?
Well, I think that we didn't come from much. Came from just maybe the wrong side of the tracks, just outside Philadelphia, and
Isn't that all of Philadelphia? Oh, sorry, I had to get that in there.
Oh, wow. I know some people who know some people, but no, certainly, enjoy dining out. I enjoy, all the things I think everybody else does. Enjoy vacations. Want to put my kids through school. Would like to have a reasonable home. So I think I got to feed the dog. There's no doubt about that. So I think it's just having a little spending money. But I think beyond that, as I looked at CPCU in particular, I viewed insurance, where I grew up, as a profession. And if it is a profession, that's an important word, I think. You want to be a professional, which means to me, you want to be good at what you do. And I think our profession in particular, requires some duty. We're steeped in the public interest. What we do can keep a business in business. What we do on the personal lines side, shout out to my personal lines friends, can keep people in their home. And that's incredibly, incredibly important. And I think at times, in the industry, when we talk about the numbers and the profits and all that important stuff, I think we forget at times about the benefits that we provide to society and the financial foundation of our country and, frankly, the world. So, and I don't want to sound too preachy about that, but I do think it's very, very important and something that I constantly am telling young people and folks starting out in the business. They're not always all young, but remember what we do. Because it really is important. And if you don't think so, that's cool. There's other very, very important things. And if you don't like insurance, then, get into a field that does make you feel better and that you are contributing to, society and therefore to your family and therefore to yourself. And so that you've got some passion around it. So for me, I didn't set out to go into insurance, probably much like, 99.8% of the people that I've ever met in my 39 years, but I kind of fell into it, and it was something that I did honestly as I went through college. Took my classes in the morning, worked in the afternoon, so I had a little spending money in my pocket, and after after college, just kind of stayed with it. And, I think as you look at it, and I had a mentor, and that was huge. I mean, I had this mentor, someone of incredible ethics. His name is John Lafferty. I'm going to say a shout out to John Lafferty. I haven't seen him in a lot of years, but, we were in an agency together, and he took me under his wing, and he kind of said, kid, you got to get the CPCU. If you're serious about staying in this business, get the CPCU. And, it's hard, you got to work for it. We know a lot of people who have failed an exam. Don't get down on yourself if you fail an exam. It's not the end of the world. Stick with it.
Yeah.
But he taught me a great deal. It's kind of like a second father to me, and taught me a great deal about life and about ethics. And that's incredibly important. So, I think that's yet another reason to get that CPCU. And the fact that ethics is still a class that's required. I was so happy when the curriculum changed, because it did change a little bit over 39 years. But when that curriculum changed, that ethics, be still stuck in there as a required course. And especially as I look back in the last 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, last year, ethics, incredibly important. And, for folks to have a sense of that, particularly in the insurance business, very, very powerful thing.
Yeah. I think Mike K is mind melding with you, because he's got a question here that kind of gets into what you started to touch on. Before I get there, I just wanted to ask Heather, if you had to kind of like put it into a couple of words, what really drove you in your career progression as you were going through kind of those different phases?
I would say it was a drive to learn something new. I've always been somebody who wanted to keep learning, no matter how old I get, no matter how entrenched that I get into a particular job role. And because I don't believe that you can ever allow that growth to stop. When you allow that growth to stop, you stagnate, and you become complacent. You start to maybe not act ethically in things that you do, because you're not keeping up your knowledge base. So it always early on, because like I was somebody that fell into insurance too. I started, I used to run a preschool before I jumped into the insurance world, and I knew about this much about insurance before I came into the industry. So that was one of the exciting things about it, is that I had this whole world opened up to me that I could learn, and I can just continue to learn. So I would say that progression for me has been, oftentimes not stepping up a level, not ladder climbing, not doing all those types of things, but really pushing myself to grow and learn throughout my career. And, there's been moments where I wasn't super jazzed or excited about that, because I just got tired, and I was like, why am I doing this? It's not really helping me and everything. But I always get out of that slump and keep going, and learn. And I was somebody that it took me a while to earn the CPCU too. I started it, and then I stopped it, and then I started it again, and then I stopped it again. And, I've told my Hawaii CPCU motivation story multiple times here on this program, but, I got it for selfish reasons, and because I wanted to go to Hawaii. And then I realized that I was missing out on some things about the designation that make it so very, very special. And I wasn't leveraging all of the capabilities that it gives to me by being a part of CPCU. It's more than just something you hang on the wall.
I can actually say that my like what comes to mind when I think about what fueled my progression was I like solving problems. So it's good from the standpoint of when I'm presented with something new or something challenging, like I have blinders on. Like I can't think about anything except that and fix that problem. The issue becomes that when you put me into a corporate environment, the corporate environment wants to train you to fix the problem and then keep feeding you that problem. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I learned how to fix that problem. I need to go on to the next problem. Like that was always my mindset. So in getting my CPCU, it was, I was working in life insurance and stuff. I had kind of learned a little bit of property and casualty to get my license, but now it was like that next step in the progression. And, the person in front of me said, well, like, here's the carrot on the stick, like, get your CPCU to get to that next level. And I was like, okay, I'll have it tomorrow. Like, I was always of that mindset where it's just like, whatever that next barrier was, I wanted to get to it, knock it down, and then get to the next one. So for me, it was very much that kind of like, just what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And yeah, it caused some tension sometimes because, again, I didn't want to sit in the same seat for multiple years. And granted, like, companies are in the business to make profit and they need people that can sit in that seat in order to solve that problem repeatedly to make money. But at the same time, I was like, all right, like, the clock is ticking, right? Like, every single time I got in that seat, like, the stopwatch started, like, it was short, like, it wasn't long, right? And so, some people that jived with, and other people it caused, a little bit of this, which is probably why I decided to become my own boss. So now that I can just fight with myself over all of that stuff now. But so Mike K, he is in the right mindset. He's headed down the right road with us. His question to you, John, was how much did the CPCU help you with your progression and kind of moving along in that path?
Sure. Let me answer it two ways. One is the designation, and certainly that's important. I mean, as employers look at you, as I look at people, having that designation shows that you have made the commitment. And Heather, kind of to Heather's point, I don't care whether you get it in a year or 20 years. You've made a commitment, stick with it. I would certainly be a cheerleader for anybody, in the process of earning the designation. So the designation itself has value. It says to people that you care about your profession and you're willing to, learn. Secondarily, I think, and more importantly, hopefully you're not going to block me out here, Matt, but I think the more important thing is just the learning. It's important to learn about your craft. And, there's plenty of great designations. I don't care if you just take INS classes or, ARE, ALSI, AU, there's plenty of great designations. It's that continuous learning, and it's being good at your craft. And I think, CPCU is the best in terms of the survey of the entire industry, personal lines, commercial lines, ethics, operations, economics, et cetera. That I think that's where the CPCU is unparalleled. But because we all took an oath, right, we promised that we weren't going to overstate the value of the designation. And I'm not going to do that. But, I do think it's important just to show the effort, as everything in life, in life.
Yeah. And what did that look like? Was it, when you got your designation, was it something that, and forgive me if I'm making you restate yourself, but was it something that just was looked at as a way of kind of deepening your knowledge at the time of, the position that you were in? Or was it something that maybe kind of like, for me, it was, that carrot to get you to the next level, or, that birthright to get you into the next phase? What did that kind of like manifest itself as?
Well, first of all, I wanted to go to Hawaii along with Heather.
That sounds like a birthright to me.
Exactly. Because I had young children and a spouse that was tired of, me being up late at night studying, I was pretty much told, get the darn designation. So I got to go to Pittsburgh, which, we call the Hawaii of the East. But
really, I've never heard that before. I don't think that's made its way out here.
You got three rivers coming together. You got great sports teams. You got fabulous bars and restaurants. Pittsburgh is just the Riviera, the Riviera or the Hawaii of the East. But
yes.
So again, it just gets back to it wasn't just deepening my knowledge, because it's certainly that, but it's also broadening the knowledge. I knew a bit. I knew agency, I knew distribution, and I knew a bit about underwriting. But, I felt that it was going to be my career. I'm going to be in it for, 30, 40, 50 years if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And that, wasn't exactly sure where I would ultimately end up. And, CPCU gives you a bit of a survey, gives you a perspective on a number of different areas. And, I think, we've talked a little bit about it. One of the things I preach in this industry to practitioners is surround yourself with people. Get out there, surround yourself with people. Go talk to the actuaries, go talk to distribution. Nobody can stop you. I know sometimes, you're a little old underwriter, or maybe you're in premium audit or wherever. But nobody, should, if you're at a good company, if they do stop you, come to another company. Hey, come call me. But, get out there, talk to the actuaries, talk to other underwriters, talk to people in different segments, talk to people in national accounts, talk to people in small business, personal lines, commercial lines, lawyers. Lawyers do not bite. Go talk to the legal department. They're actually great people. They actually respect ethics. They respect effort. And, go and talk to these folks. Learn a bit about your business and beyond just the insurance business. When I look at underwriters, and, again, looking for that CPCU, but I'm also looking for people that are interesting, that, have friends that are artists or, brokers, claim professionals, contractors, doctors. If you want to learn about this business and pretty much any function you're going to be in, you need to have a lot of diversity, in my opinion. You need to have a lot of diversity in your life, because that diversity leads to, a more open mind and a much, a mind that makes you more inquisitive. And that is just, it pays tremendous dividends in every role I've ever seen in this business.
Yeah. As a non-actuary who has spent a bunch of time with actuaries, Heather, what is your response to that?
I love it. I love that you said that, because unfortunately, just because of the nature of the way insurance is structured, a lot of times in large organizations, especially, people get in a bubble and they stay in a bubble. You just told everybody to get out of their bubble. And,
Absolutely.
when we get out of that bubble, there's a whole world that's out there. And like, Matt pointed out, I've spent some time in an actuarial department, not being an actuary because I am not a math person. I can do math, but I don't enjoy it. And, but I learned such an incredible amount of, like, they opened my eyes to things that I never even thought about in insurance. And I would ask, I would say, hey, would you mind if I attend this rating meeting with you? And I was somebody that was responsible for writing the homeowner's policy. Like, I wrote the policy form. So I worked a lot with claim counsel and underwriting and all of those types of areas. But I was like, let me just attend a few rating meetings, because I want to understand what it is that you do. And I want to go to some modeling meetings as well. And those were so eye-opening to me, because there's so much. It's art. Like I said, it's part art. It's a lot of science, that goes into rate making and how decisions are made around those types of things. But it's truly an art form whenever you watch it played out by people that are incredibly good at that. And that's why I love the fact that you said to tell people to get out of their bubble. You only expand your capabilities and your knowledge and your business acumen about this industry when you choose to step outside of that bubble and talk to everybody, talk to all the different areas of your organization, so you can understand how the parts and the pieces and the silos that sometimes develop work together to make an insurance company run.
Yeah. No doubt. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to get out of that bubble. I mean, we're all human beings, for gosh sakes. Nobody knows everything. If you're going to go to a meeting with actuaries, you only have to do two things. Ask them if they used the Bornemann-Ferguson method, and ask them if they trended and developed those results at manual. If you do that, they're immediately buying you beers. There's really not a whole lot else you have to do. If you go to the legal department, just point out, touch your chin and say, but it's a contract of adhesion. And these are things that these are things you learn through the CPCU. And again, like then the lawyers are buying you red wine or scotch. The first scotch you'll try usually is bought by a lawyer. So these are the ways you ingratiate yourself. So yeah, don't be afraid, people. If you're not sure, contact us. We will give you the questions to ask. We'll give you the things to say. Icebreakers, we'll call them. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. No, in a group of brokers, all you got to do is ask them whether they track their success by premium bound or commissions. That's all you got to ask them. That starts them off talking about. They'll actually fight amongst themselves. I'm pretty sure if the first glass of scotch that you ever drink is bought by a lawyer, I think the cheapest beer someone will ever buy you is probably by an insurance broker. That's usually the way it works. That's like the two ends of the spectrum. Depends on what business they write. Some of the brokers I worked with, they were more wine people. So, but definitely get outside your comfort zone. To your point, Heather, with talking about silos and how things are they've been divided for a long period of time, but those walls are beginning to kind of like dissolve away for various reasons. One of the conversations or one of the topics that we brought up, John, was globalization and how that's kind of impacting, the industry at large, but also specifically how it's impacting how people progress within the industry. What's kind of like, granted that's a big topic, but what's kind of like your perspective or your take on how that's playing out?
Well, certainly it's globalization to me, and from what I see and track, it's increasing and at a tremendous velocity. And it's all about TNT. It's travel, transportation, technology, and we'll get past COVID. We're getting there. We'll get past COVID. Not going to be that much longer. We'll look back and laugh if we're still, our dogs and our significant others haven't killed us.
Yep.
And we'll get out there and we'll travel and we'll get to see people again. And and technology. Look at what we're doing right here. North Carolina, New Jersey, and I'm in Wisconsin, and here we are. And we're using WebEx, we're using Zoom, we're using Microsoft Teams, we're using all these different technologies. Yesterday, I was talking to some folks in London, Paris, and Colorado. We're doing that more and more, and the world is getting smaller. So if you're not tracking insurance globally yet, and it's fun, I would certainly recommend that. If you're not sure what you want to do in the insurance industry, start taking a look at there's several different sources that you can get daily in your inbox. You can track what's going on in insurance all around the world, and start doing that. And pick a company that's international and take some assignments. And you can travel the world and look at other cultures and see how they do insurance as well. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm in surplus lines, so we're kind of steeped in that international, London/international flavor. We're not really ISO for many of the companies, so we get to see it all the time. And I would highly recommend that to people. Plus, I think it's just interesting, and small world, and you can represent the United States. Be super nice.
Definitely be super nice.
Please, we've got some, maybe we could argue we've got some making up to do. So get out there and help.
Definitely. What's your thought, Heather, in terms of just how small the world has gotten? As someone who formerly or soon to be formerly worked in change management and things like that, how did you see that impact, your role or individuals' roles within your, the places where you worked, just in terms of just literally how small the world has gotten in interconnectivity?
I think it's really meant to the insurance professional today that you have to diversify your skills, and you have to approach what is coming in our industry with a sense of inquisitiveness. Some like that entrepreneurial spirit needs to be within you. To be able to survive all the shifts and changes that are going to come to our industry in the next 5 to 10 years. The world is getting smaller, but the world of insurance itself is just it. You're it's gigantic. It's so big and so massive, and everything that we do, like John said early on, touches every single sector of society. We literally help to make the world go round with insurance. And the more that you open yourself up to the idea that you can diversify your skill set and approach things with a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset of I can't do this and I'm not, approach it with the mindset that, yeah, I might make some mistakes. I might stumble over myself. I may not be good at math, saying those types of words out loud, but I can do this. And approaching it with an attitude of I can be someone who can be a catalyst in our industry, no matter what my role is. And if you approach what you're doing in insurance today with that type of an attitude, you will see progression that just never stops for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I would I would say that the people in the CPCU society that I've seen just take off like a meteor, that what you said can't be understated. Like that was their mindset. It was inquisitive. It was exploration. It was testing and trial and error and not being afraid of making a mistake. Those kind of things were all kind of contributed to some of these people that just, either over a short period of time or just took these, monumental leaps in terms of their career progression, in terms of, whatever their seniority or what they were responsible for, or, just even kind of what capacity that they were working in. How does InsurTech factor into this? Like, John, in your estimation, like as far as the world getting smaller, technology becoming even more integral into what we do every single day, and now we have a bunch of these computer nerds coming in saying, "Oh no, we could do it better." How does that factor into either the potential opportunities that are out there for people in career progression, or even does it hurt? I mean, is there something that kind of retards people's progress when it comes to, InsurTech now being in the mix?
Okay, so here's where I do the disclaimer and say I'm going to answer for John Black, not for my employer, just so that they don't take me out tonight. But
fair enough.
and if there are thousands of InsurTech people looking at this right now, my apologies right up front. But there is a lot of there's a lot of InsurTech that I really question the value of. Now, I don't question the value of InsurTech per se. There is, it's technology. It's improving. It's increasing. There's more and more data out there. It's becoming more accurate and, more useful. So I'm very, very high on the future. But I do think there are some folks that really don't, they know they've got something and they don't know the value of it, and they're not really sure how it applies to insurance. But my God, they will certainly charge you $500,000 for you to help them figure out how they can make a business of it.
Yeah.
So sorry if that's a little irreverent, but it's a bit based on experience. And hey, kids, when somebody comes to you with a model, ask a whole lot of questions. And if they can't explain that model, or it doesn't seem to make any sense to you, keep asking questions. And try and make sure that you're not paying them while you're asking those questions. Yep. There's just a little bit of advice. But, InsurTech is coming. I mean, we all know that. I mean, technology has fundamentally changed how we do business. Once again, here we are. Once again, we're on computers that are now, the size of nothing. I can actually do quotes on my phone, for gosh sakes. Crazy stuff, right? Things that we never thought 30 years ago we'd be able to do. So, and now we're getting much, much better at predicting things, at evaluating risk. It's all good. It's all great stuff. But I do think, like most changes in technology, we're going to go through a period where we have to separate, the reality and the utility from the noise and the expense. And, I think that's where we are exactly right now. There's a lot of stuff, and there's all this private equity that's been thrown at all this insurtech. Oh my gosh, we can make a lot of money, the three of us, just starting up an insurtech company. What does it do? I'm not sure, but we'll give it like a really cool name, like, coffee, and we'll spell it differently. And I bet we could raise 10 million in about 3 weeks. But anyway, then there's the reality, and this is where again CPCU comes in. Hugely handling. We've trained people to think critically. The designation trains people to see a little bit more broadly. This is where you want your best and your sharpest people doing those evaluations and determining, is it of value and how is it useful? And there are some folks that I work with that I love what they're doing. There's one company that's very into predicting civil unrest, scoring and predicting civil unrest. Some brilliant work, and even more brilliant work that will continue over the next 10 years. That's great stuff. That's stuff that we can use, and we can use for every line of business and in every sector of our industry. So it's sorting through, and coming up with that which is useful, and then making sure that you're using it in a way that's commercially viable. So.
And would you say that opens up opportunities for progress, or I mean,
no doubt.
It could be a yes but answer, right? Like it could be a yes, there are opportunities, but be smart about the ones that you choose to undertake, or
Exactly.
the branches that you venture out on, because they could fall out from under you.
Absolutely. Like, to me, what I would counsel people and often do, and as we evaluate, is it a good business model that has a technology component? That I would highly recommend. Too many times I see just an horrendous business model, but it's going to work because we got really cool technology. And, our industry is just strewn with the corpses of those kind of companies. And, sometimes if they're lucky, they get bought out. Many times they quietly go out of business. So, it does create opportunity. I don't want to downplay that. It's great. There's all kinds of opportunity out there. There always is. If you look for it and you can find it. But as you're evaluating it as a CPCU candidate or CPCU, you got to look at it and say, is this a viable business model? If the answer is yes, go for it. Add that value. If the answer is no, well, if you need a short-term job, hang in. Hopefully you get some stock, and hopefully it gets sold and you make a little money.
That's interesting. Yeah. I as the insurance rebel, Heather, what's your take on that?
Well, I'm a fan of a lot of insurtech, but I'm cautious about it, just like you are, John. I know that a lot of legacy insurance companies that are out there today that are struggling to modernize and struggling to drag their systems out of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and push those to the future, they can benefit from those technology capabilities and the acceleration of technology capabilities that insurtechs can provide them. But I'm cautious about them too, because they could be like a whiff in the wind, basically, and be gone as fast as they started. So I am of the opinion that legacy insurance companies desperately need insurtech, and they need the capability for product acceleration. They need the capability for system modernization that needs to happen, and I would encourage every legacy insurance company out there to explore the options that are available to them, because the only way to get to the future is to get on that fast moving train. And
I should have made clear, Heather, to your point, well, I guess when I view insurtech, I view it in two broad-based buckets. One is kind of the data and the new technology, geocoding, predictive models, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the operational aspect, which I think you're speaking to. And I'm totally on board with you on that. Companies that still have legacy systems, and legacy is, I would even define legacy as, if you put your system in place just even in the last 20 years, you should be looking again. there's a fundamental paradigm shift going on in our industry right now. And there's a handful of vendors out there that have tremendous ability to have configurable systems and systems where entire tables, algorithms can be copied and replicated. And in that replication process, you can create new. I've seen it recently where a vendor supported ISO's commercial auto product, 105 rules out of the 110. They didn't do zone rating. And they were able to then copy that, all the tables, all the rules, the forms, the business rules within all that, within 2 minutes, replicate it, change a few things, and you got a brand new product. And let that sink in for just a second, because to me, the days of massive IT projects that take quarters and years, they're not over. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's over, but it's getting close to that. And there are things that now that can be done in weeks or months, brand new products, complicated products that can be brought to bear with a very robust system that has many, many functional domains, not just rate, quote, bind, issue anymore, but claims, billing, workflow, document management. These things are baked into a lot of these new solutions. And the cost is 1/5 to 1/10 of what a traditional solution would be. And then the ongoing maintenance cost, instead of a factor of 5 to 12, depending on who you believe, the cost of the implementation versus the ongoing maintenance, a lot of these systems now, that cost is like 2 to 4. And that, financial people should be all over that. Operational people should be all over that, as well as the underwriters and the product management. So yeah, it is a paradigm shift for our industry.
Yeah. And there's also the dynamic of enterprise-wide solutions taking years and millions of dollars to create and then roll out is being completely obliterated, because there are these growth-driven design models now that allow you to, incrementally essentially retire at least a piece of that old enterprise system as the core. And then as you build out the new solution, you then successively retire the other pieces of that enterprise system. And like you said, the costs are ridiculously more efficient or lower than they were per unit in the past. And so that's reassuring. I think there's opportunity there. There's opportunity in, developing those new solutions, but there's also opportunity in simply learning how the new solutions operate and just being able to live and be productive in that world. There's also the thought process of, all right, progression in your career does not have to be like this stair-step kind of model, right? It can be this kind of like topsy-turvy back and forth, and then eventually you end somewhere, right? Like, that's not ideal, but that being said, you give up a little bit of ultimate achievement sometimes for having that defined course to your career. And so I'll give you an example. So an example is my co-host of the other CPCU show that we do, Sell Like a CPCU, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Or I should hold up 3 fingers. 3 p.m. Eastern. So Precious, yeah, she worked for a couple of insurtechs before, or insurtech type firms. So like brokers that really tried to ultra tech their firm and streamline it so that they had a minimal number of human bodies and mostly technology running a lot of, and automation running a lot of what they were doing. And ultimately, those opportunities did not pan out for her in the long term. But what she did get from those were, and I'm putting words in her mouth, and I'm pretty sure she would echo these sentiments, what she did get was skill sets from working in those opportunities, and then she found a way to then parlay that into this opportunity that she's starting now, which is her own firm, her own agency that she's founding. So I think that's also, I would love to hear your opinion on it, John, in terms of, you don't always need to take like a straight line or this kind of like stair step or kind of like piecemeal progression. There can be some stops along the way and some hills that you have to climb and some valleys where you take a shot and you miss, right? Like, I mean, that stuff does exist, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and there's also leaps, and they're not always leaps up. It can be a leap, sideways into something different. I mean, technology, like everywhere in life. I mean, technology is just creating all kinds of opportunities for folks, and it never before, I think, and probably every generation has said that, at their point in history, but never before, from what I read, what I study, and what I see, has there been so much opportunity, and it's only increasing, and it's increasing at an increasing velocity, and it's globalizing, as we talked about. And so, to me, it is exactly that. You should be looking at things in a much more holistic manner. And I think a lot of those days of a progression, because progression also forces you to stay on a path. And when that path changes, God forbid technology usurps that path or destroys that path, what are you going to do? All of a sudden your career could potentially stop. So I do think it's always good to have everything we've talked about, have a broader view of the world, look at globalization, stay inquisitive, keep learning. And I think that's incredibly important. And if I can put one quick plug in.
Go for it.
Another, disintermediation. I hate that way too often, and I'm not just sucking up to the host here, but way too often the quote unquote opportunities that cross my desk are a plan around disintermediation. In my humble opinion, insurance is a complicated business. Insurance, needs to be sold to people. They need counseling around what they need. There has to be a give and take between the insurance company, the brokers. If you think for a second that brokers don't add value to our business, then I think you really need to relook at your understanding of our business. So, and a lot of the disintermediation plays, these companies wind up forming call centers. And what do they have to do? They have to bring in a whole bunch of agents. So it's a different way to deliver that intermediation. But, and many times it's even more costly in the long run. So, I like the technology platforms. And I guess my message is technology should enable better, stronger, more efficient intermediation than destroy the entire model. I really haven't seen that work effectively yet. And I'd be happy to debate anybody on your show, Matt, that has a different opinion on that.
Well, first of all, for me and the other brokers of my kind, the check is in the mail. So just so you know, it's coming. But no, I would completely agree. I would say, if your goal as a new solution or something like that is to cut people out of the insurance process, you're playing with fire, because the more you do that, and the more mechanical that you make the purchase of insurance, the less likely it is that product is actually going to fit their needs, right? So the one thing, like inside baseball, the way I sell to my client base is I tell them, look, if I was just a broker, if I was standing in front of you and I was just a broker that I told you I take a product off the shelf and I say, here, this is what you need, and I just give it to you and take your money, I would have absolutely no value in that process. You could just walk to the shelf and grab it yourself, right? It's my job to take that product from the shelf and then tinker with it, right? And add the pieces or remove the pieces that don't need to be there or do need to be there to custom fit it to you. It's like going to Men's Warehouse, right? And you go to the Men's Warehouse or Joseph A. Bank or whatever. The suits are sitting there. They're kind of pre-made, but then what do? They have the specialists sit there and fit you and tailor it and make sure that it's perfectly fit for you and your body type. That's the same analogy for brokers. It's the same analogy for a lot of other roles within the insurance industry that tech companies routinely, attack or try and remove from the process. So I think what I like better is, be more like the company that created the sewing machine that makes the tailor's job easier, right? Don't be like the company that tries to make the sewing machine that removes the tailor from the process. And now all you can do is, do 50 of the same standard pattern without any customization.
Yeah,
But,
and we're not against progress. It's
yeah,
just how you go about it and the timing around that progress. And
yeah.
I don't get the whole tailoring thing. Joseph A. Banks, menswear. I'm an underwriter, Matt. I shop at Macy's and Kohl's, buddy.
Yeah.
That's where I get my. So someday if I become a broker, maybe I'll taste that world. Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
If any of us were attorneys, I would have said Brooks Brothers or something like that. But, I never see the inside of that store. What are your thoughts on that, Heather?
Matt,
I think
I was going to say you kind of touched on a little bit with the other roles. I'm a claims girl from my roots in insurance, and increasingly you see this drive and this want to manufacture the claims process and make it very, very rigid and remove the human element from it again. And while those efforts are noble, they have a noble purpose in that,
Right.
hey, we want to make this process faster. We want to make this process more efficient. We want to make this, we want to drive down expense so that we can keep our premiums, at a level that is, competitive. There is no moment in the world of insurance where the contract comes more alive and is realized than during a claim. And when you remove a human element that is a needed advisor through the process of what has to happen, people are in shock and trauma. They're going through an emotional experience a lot of times when they're dealing with a claim. Now, that being said, you can automate the things about claims that annoy claim adjusters, the people that work in claims. You can automate and get those things out of their way so that they can actually be that person that they need to be for the customer on the other end of the line, or the customer that they're meeting face to face. And that's my soapbox story about how the world of claims, yes, we need to automate some things that happen in the process. I think it's fantastic, the blockchain solutions that are coming through for subrogation handling and everything. That has removed a lot of rote work out of claims. And rote work is perfect to remove, but the human element, you can't pull that out of it. Otherwise, we become such a dry and a sterile, industry that people need us in those moments. And we, insurance will always be a people business, no matter how much we try to techie and technology it to death, because it's at the heart of people's most prized things in their life. We support that, and we help them to keep their business running. We help them to drive down the road when they want to go drive down the road. We help them to have a home that they can raise their family in. So that relational aspect of insurance can never be removed. Otherwise, we're just like Amazon. I'm just pushing a button and I'm ordering something, or I'm, it's like the slot machine. I'm pulling the lever and this is what's going to happen. So
yeah.
But yeah.
No, those are all good points. I want to be respectful of your time, John. We're coming up on an hour, but there was one other kind of like big topic that we discussed in terms of like a theme for this, and it really comes down to the training component, not necessarily from the individual perspective, but from the C-suite, from the CEO, from the hiring managers and the higher ups. And you had mentioned that that's something that, has always continued and probably will continue to be something that keeps them up at night. What's your perspective on that? Why do you think they kind of fret so much about that?
Well, and I'll be kind, but the industry in general, has not done a great job of technical training in, I would say, at least 15 years. And then many times people will quickly correct me and say 15 years, 25 years. So, the old days, hate to use that term. God, I'm getting old. But the old days of the Travelers and the Safecos and the Hartfords and, going through that progression and really learning your craft doesn't happen as often. Some of those companies still do some fabulous training. I mean, no slight of anyone in our industry. Anybody that's doing training, keep at it. Woohoo. And you've got a champion and someone that respects that in me.
Yeah.
But, we haven't done a great job of it in the industry. And so, and this is nothing new. I mean, I'm not telling anybody on this call or anybody listening to this call anything new. And so a lot of those folks that do have that technical training are retiring. We're aging out. And it really keeps, I think, a lot of people. I think that's why some CEOs are more interested in some of these models where, okay, maybe I can cut out some people because I can't get good people anyway. And, that's a shame. And of course, it makes the CPCU that much more valuable. And it makes the people that do continue with their education and do continuous learning, makes them so much more valuable. So, I think if you see any survey of the C-suite, one of the big issues, one of the things that scares them the most, is they look at enterprise risk. And, is there going to be a change in technology? Is it the Swiss watchmakers where suddenly, for a period, digital watches blew them out of the water? Is there that technology, that completely disruptive technology that's coming? And certainly, usually within the first 3 or 4 is, how am I going to keep a high level of high quality individuals that understand our business and can, make a competitive advantage for us. So very much encourage people to, stick with the learning, keep that open mind, stay with it. And, we don't know that much. The more you learn, it's so true. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. So stick with it. We've all got something to learn.
It's interesting that you bring up the concept of enterprise risk management. And one thing that just kind of like popped into my head had to do with, look, we've talked about globalization, we've talked about insurtech, we've talked about some of these evolving pieces of the industry. Insurance companies need to practice what they preach. And in a lot of cases, like their risk management teams get this. I don't know if they necessarily get it, but the idea of redundant systems, right? So redundant systems can be costly. They can be wasteful because it costs money. Like whenever you're dealing with duplication of assets and whatnot, it can cost extra. The other way to build resilient systems that have some redundancy in them is to cross-train people so that if for some reason there is an insurtech solution that comes along that eliminates claims people or 90% of claims people or eliminates 90% of underwriters, they don't want to necessarily just drop that talent base and send it off, because that could end up creating, say you doubled the volume of the policies you write, you're going to have other areas of the business that you still have to tool up in order to be able to deal with that. So I think L&D and training, and I'll defer to Heather because she is our resident L&D person. Is that something that companies have been contemplating in terms of like cross-training personnel for multiple roles, or have you seen the trend go more in the direction of, the Prussian industrial age where we're just kind of training people to do one job over and over and over again?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's the latter, Matt, in a lot of companies, because you specialize down into roles, and then you want to say, okay, we're just going to teach you your lane that you're going to stay in. Now, that doesn't mean that, people don't go get a mentor or, go talk to people who might be in other areas, but there's no formalized way in a lot of companies now where you can get a diverse set of skills and experiences that are technical based. unless you job hop or unless you job role hop. And then you're going to be, retraining and relearning a lot.
Yeah.
But it is, I think it's an imperative need. I'm incredibly passionate about training and learning and development. And because I feel like that we've also taken the human element out of that. We've created video training, and we've created, broadcast things that people just have to click through this rote clicking process to demonstrate knowledge and understanding. Adults don't learn that way.
Yeah.
Adults learn by experience and by actually going through scenarios and being put into situations that challenge them. That's why they have that whole 70-20-10 concept with adult learning. And I would encourage every insurance company out there. Your training area is more vital and necessary today. And we know it's expensive. Okay, we get it. It's a huge expense. But your training area is so much more needed and so much more vital today than it was ever in the past. Why? Because we have that silver tsunami coming. And that technical base of knowledge is leaving our industry. You got to grab a hold of all of that while you can and pass it off to the masses. Because we're going to be hurting in a lot of ways if we don't do that, if we don't adopt that style of a model. So,
there's no doubt in my mind that we need to do a better job of that across the industry. But I will say that I think that some of the online learning can be incredibly useful because it does break down some barriers, and it does allow the more entrepreneurial, the folks that are more invested in their own knowledge and inquisitive, it gives them an opportunity. Now, hopefully companies will continue to expand that and allow people, to learn more. And I do think that there can be things like job rotation rather than job hopping that can be incredibly valuable. And, I think we need to think more innovatively. We have this tendency, to your point, Heather, where we just view education as it's expensive and it's complicated. And, it really isn't. If you took all of your senior executives and you put as part of their bonus plan that they're going to teach a class, it isn't so expensive. You already have those resources, right? And, you got to help them out. You got to get them some materials. And maybe not every senior executive is cut out to, be interesting and keep a group's attention. But, you can sort that out pretty quickly. And there are plenty of people, within any insurance company that would love to talk about what they do. And, lunch and learns don't really cost you a whole lot. Obviously, you got exempt, non-exempt employees. I get that, finance people. Don't beat me up too bad. But, you can make it very, very efficient. People can go to a lunch and learn. They don't have to travel for that. And, you can constantly have interesting topics. And even if you just had people from different operational areas come in and talk about their operation, talk about their goals, many times that communication doesn't occur. Or if it does occur in an organization, it's like they send out like a white paper and nobody reads it. So, much better to have like 6 slides and somebody that can speak and, be engaging than it is to have, a long, lengthy, drawn out white paper that might have a lot of great information that nobody ever digests. So I think if the companies just think about it a little bit differently and bring, a lot of the creativity we bring to finance and to InsurTech and to new products, if we brought all that to L&D, we'd be in a much, much better place.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And, shameless plug here, I think the other answer is you have a program like the CPCU and the other certifications that are out there that can give a nice, well-rounded, not a deep dive, but a nice, well-rounded exposure to those different operating units. And then the home run is if they get involved in a group like the CPCU Society, they will be exposed to the people that not only work in their capacity at other competitors and other companies, but also the people that work in different capacities. And what's funny is sometimes we go to a CPCU Society event, when we're allowed to, and people meet someone from their own company that they normally would never have met. And it's like, it's a thing of beauty. And it's like, not that I work for State Farm, but I'll use the State Farm example because Heather's here. Like, oh, you're State Farm, I'm State Farm. Hey, how's it going? Like, and before that day, you didn't even know each other, right? Like, you've never mingled, you've never kind of cross-populated those different departments or those personnel. And, typically over a libation, you sit there and you talk about, like, what's your job experience? What's my job experience? What kind of drives your unit versus my business unit? And it really kind of helps round out and create that kind of redundant and diversified, learning, experiential as well as book learning that goes into the workforce. So I think that's my big pitch there.
To your point too, just amplifying on what you're saying, ladies and gentlemen, mergers and acquisitions. Somebody who maybe is in a similar role to you, you might be working together. You might be, employed by the same employer at some point. There's been plenty of that over 39 years. And, it's always good to make those contacts. And to your point, just CPCU is invaluable from a networking standpoint. You can learn a good bit more. You can see what other companies are doing. Every CPCU I've ever met, regardless of whether they're a competitor, has always been very forthcoming and very open. They're not telling trade secrets, but they have been very, very forthcoming. Great at conversation, great at talking about the business. Learn, communicate, exchange ideas, and let's look for ways at times where we can partner. There's no reason why there can't be more consortiums in this industry to help do some things in the public good, and that helps our entire industry. All boats rise when our industry does something in the public good. So, and hopefully you'll see a little bit more of that. Frankly, coming out of our own company over the next couple of years. That's definitely something that we're very, very interested in. So,
awesome. Any final notes or questions there, Heather?
No, I was just going to say, you guys talking about how it levels the CPCU kind of levels that playing field and everything. It's a great unifier as well. It's like, oh, you're a CPCU too, and you have those meetings of the minds, and you're like, well, what do you do, and who do you work for, and what's your job role, and how to, tell me a little bit more about this and this and this. Have you heard about this topic? And I think that's kind of like the magic of CPCU, is that it opens up that world and just levels all the fields of the people in the room, because that everybody that's surrounding you is put in the same hard work as you did, but they just came at it from a different area of expertise or a different area of experience, or maybe for a different motivation as well. So, but that's my big cheerleader rah pitch for that CPCU, is because, number one, if you get involved, especially as a volunteer or doing any type of activities with the CPCU Society, it's the cheapest leadership development program that your company will ever expend money for you.
Yep.
Your society membership is your gateway to a lot of leadership development, and that's how you sell it to your company. Is, look, I'm not asking you to pay for me to, attend a $5,000 seminar for 3 days so I can learn how to be a leader. I'm asking you to give me the opportunity to be a part of just experiencing being a leader. And I'll bring that back, and I'll pay, it'll pay dividends back into this company. So that's your pitch.
Yeah.
Agreed.
John, I want to say thank you. If people do want to find out more about you, or what you do at Applied, how can they connect with you, or kind of like get some more information?
Sure. On LinkedIn, isn't everybody? Happy to connect with a lot of folks. Have a very blessed to have a very diverse LinkedIn group. And also, Jay Black at specialty.auw.com. Happy to answer any emails. And if I can ever help anyone as they go through their journey, their CPCU journey, or really any learning journey, always happy to take a few minutes out of my day to do that. So thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah.
You never know when suddenly you're going to be on a live cast. Holy
Yeah. Well, you did a fantastic job. I appreciate it. This was a great episode.
Now, who
a
are those
reminder.
guys behind you? Are they from Philadelphia? Because you said some nasty things about us.
Well, no, actually, I'll show you the one guy who's up top. If you can see my Derek Jeter Hall of Fame placard up there.
All right.
And
We got
and then
we got respect.
It's smaller, but I got a signed 8.5 by 11 by Lawrence Taylor next to it too. So
Well, I don't think they played for the Eagles or the Phillies, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's all right. They'll do.
They seem like they're pretty good at what they do too. So
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. This was a fantastic episode. A reminder to anyone who's watching or will watch the recorded version: we are live every single Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on these social media channels. Please, even if you watch this after the live cast has ended, leave your comments and questions in the comment section. We will get back to you and continue the conversation. Heather, John, thank you very much. Have a very good evening, and hopefully the weather stays nice for you too.
Yeah.
Be well, and hopefully one day I get to come back. So thank you so much.
Oh, we'll definitely have you. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.